Hello and welcome to this tutorial, which is looking at some very minor tips that will work in all three of Serif's programs: Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer and Affinity Publisher beta version. The beta version, in fact I just downloaded the new version today and it is currently at 1.7.0.192 on the PC. I really don't know what the version is on the Mac, but it should work in previous versions and in future versions as well. Now, apart from the very last one, all these tips will work in all three of the programs. They're not major earth-shattering tips, which is why they don't sort of warrant a video of their own. And as they work in all three programs, I thought I'd sort of clump them together. Now, I'm going to pretty much do all of them in Affinity Photo, mainly because I feel more comfortable in that program, but they will work in the other versions of Affinity Designer and Affinity Publisher. So we're going to look at the first tip is going to be about isolating a layer. Now I've just set up this quick little document here. It's got 4 different layers, 3 text layers and 1 coloured box layer. Now say for example you wanted to paint something onto this particular box layer. Now I mean you could just add a new layer. A more conventional way would be to sort of highlight this, add a new layer, which will automatically by default put that new layer above the one that was highlighted, and then you could just start painting on it. Let me just get rid of that. But what you can do, if you hold down the Alt key and click on the layer that you want, all the other layers will disappear. Even though they still do have a tick in them to say that they're visible, they are not technically visible, and I can now just get the paintbrush, just reduce the size of this, and start painting directly onto that layer, and as you can see it has automatically added the layer as a group within that particular layer there. Let me just get rid of all that. Now I do realise I could have just highlighted this layer, got the paintbrush and started painting, and it would have done the same thing, but that's okay on my very simplified sample here. But I mean if you had some layers that were slightly overlapping the thing you want to paint on, you would it would make it difficult to see. So if you isolate that layer, you will not see anything that might be overlapping or getting in the way when you do something to it. I don't think you're necessarily restricted to painting, but it should be helpful in some cases where you can isolate the layer that you want to work on and deal with it that way. So that was the first tip. The next tip is going to the Move tool, which is this arrow up here, and as I've said before, this will work in all of the programs because they all have the Move tool. So now let's remove the Affinity layer as it is already highlighted. As many of you will probably know, is that if you use the arrow keys on your keyboard, you can move a layer around, and it's a lot easier to move it in very small increments using the arrow rather than trying to use a pad or a mouse. So if you only want to move it small distances, using the keyboard arrows is the best way to go. But what you may not have known is, because when you do it that way, you're moving them sort of 1 pixel at a time, up, down, left or right. But if you hold down the shift key, you will move them in increments of 10 pixels. So it's a much bigger jump until you get near to where you want to be. Let's get closer to Serif, let's say. And when it gets close to where you want to be, and you just want to do it in smaller increments, then you can start to just use the arrow key by itself. Let me move that back up there. So, like I said, that works in all of the free programs. And a very similar thing works with the zoom. Now, if you come to the navigator, which again is available in all 3 programs, and if you just, at the moment, on this particular document, it's set at 23%. So if I just click once into that, it will turn that blue, and then if I press the up and down arrow, it will zoom in or out in 1% increments. But again, if you hold down the shift key, you'll do that in 10% increments. So that is another tip that will work in all 3 programs, just by using the arrow keys in combination with the shift key. Now the next one is, it's these 3 symbols that are up here in Affinity Photo, and I think they're pretty much the same so they're up there in Designer and up here in Publisher. So they are all the same, roughly in the same position in all 3 programs. Now if I put the mouse over the top of it, it will tell you that insert behind the selection, and this one's insert top of the layer, and this one's insert inside the selection. Now basically what happens here is, if you, say for example, want to add an adjustment, let me put it on this one here, highlight that one. By default, pretty much if you add an adjustment, 9 times out of 10 it will add that adjustment above the highlighted layer. So if I go, for example, let's go with black and white. See, it is put that black and white adjustment above the layer that I had highlighted, so it is making everything black and white apart from the green layer which is above it. Let me just delete that. So pretty much by default it will add the layer above the one that is selected. Sometimes it will put it inside the one it's selected. I can't remember which tools do that, but there are some that do that. But you can alter how that works. I mean, you can, if I wanted it to open up below the layer that I have highlighted, insert behind, so I click that first and then I open the black and white adjustment. See, that has now put it below the one I had highlighted, and the 2 that are now above are not affected. Similarly, I could add the effect just to this layer, so that should be inside, insert, yeah, insert inside, so I click that first and then come to the black and white, and there you can see it has now sort of made a little group of that layer because I inserted it inside that layer. Let me get rid of that. So again, like I said, that works on all 3 of the programs, and it's just by using whichever combination of these buttons up here. You just need to click that first before you do whatever it is you're going to do. I mean, you could add text or something. It's not just restricted to the adjustments, but it's probably where I would probably use it most. But so that is looking at that one. Right, for the next tip, I'm just going to make these into a group. So let me highlight all of these and then right click and group them together. And what I also want is to have a coloured background. So using the tip that I used earlier is I'm going to click on the insert behind, and I'm going to use the rectangle tool and add this lovely pink colour, and as you can see it's automatically inserted it behind the group rather than what it would normally do, which would be put it above the group. So that is just there, so I can see what's happening when I use this next tip. So the tip is like mainly for using with groups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to again use the black and white filter because it demonstrates things far easier for what I want to demonstrate. But as I've opened this black and white adjustment, it like I said before, it automatically puts it above the layer, or in this case the group that was selected, and because it is at the top of this layer stack, it has made everything black and white. Now if I move this down and into the group, it should only affect the group that it is in and not the background layer like it is doing at the moment. So to move this down, I'm going to click on the icon, keep down the left mouse button and drag it down into the group. And as you can see here, you've got this blue line that comes either just to the edge of the icon, or it will come right to the left hand edge of the icon. I don't think, as you can see by the effect that it's having on the image on the screen, sorry I lost track of what I was trying to say there, you can see what effect it will have whether you come to the left hand side of the screen or come over, that's it, or to the right. So I will put it there, so it is now within that group. It is only affecting those in the group that are below it, but it is not affecting the background because that is not part of the group. So this will, as you can see here, it is not affecting the green layer, it's only affecting the ones that are below it. Now it is slightly harder to do this next bit, is sometimes you can get it a little blue line, but not horizontal this time, but a vertical blue line that goes down the side of the icon. It's not always easy to get it. I'll try and get it on this, on that yellow layer, square layer. When I let go now, it will make a mini group of just that layer within the group. So that adjustment is now only working on the rectangle, even though it's within the group and it is above the Carl layer. It is not affecting the Carl layer, it is not affecting the layer below it, mainly because that is not in the group. But this one is in the group, but it's not affected because this is now grouped within that layer and it is not affecting the layer below it. I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say. It depends on where the adjustment is within the group, whether it is sort of as another layer or whether it is in a little mini group within the group. And you can do that just by clicking and moving it and trying to get that little blue vertical line which, like I said, it's not always easy to do. Sometimes when you let go, there we go. So now that is only affecting the Carl layer, and if I put it back up here, but outside of any of the layers, it is only affecting those below it that are within the group. So hopefully that sorts that out. And the last tip I want to look at is only really works in photo, and this is for straightening the horizons. Now if you come to the crop tool, there is a button up here that says straighten, and when you click on that, it gives you this changed icon, mouse icon, and then you just click at one end and drag over to the other end of the horizon you want, and then it will automatically move it. Let me cancel that a second. But you can sort of do it with a keyboard shortcut. So if you click on the crop tool, and then when you hold down the control key, it will give you that icon. You don't have to go up to the straighten button, and then you can just, once you let go of the control key and the mouse button, it will straighten it, and then you can just carry on cropping like you would normally. And there you have a level horizon just by using the control key when you're on the crop tool. So basically that is it. The 6 tips, 5 of them all work in all 3 of the Affinity programs. They may work in slightly different ways. I haven't 100% tested that they do everything exactly the same, but the variations I would imagine are very slight, more a case of where the tools are and the position of where they are on screen is probably the main difference. So hopefully there's been some help to some people. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.